say.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where I will be doing another episode recap for today's Days of Our Lives. Today is August 13th, 2024. So we see where Xander and Sarah, they're at the house, they just got married, and Fiona and Maggie is there, right? So they're having some cake and just talking about how intimate and beautiful the ceremony was. So Xander was just happy and thankful that his mother was able to come and that he's grateful to Sarah for actually inviting her back, right? So at some point they are toasting, and Fiona toasts to them, a lovely Scottish toast, wishing them well. And then Xander also toasts to his wife and toasts to his mom for actually being a part of the ceremony. And, he's just looking forward to a better relationship, right? So at some point, Sarah brings over drinks, champagne for them and apple cider for Maggie and Fiona because they're, alcoholics, right? So at some point, Fiona finishes her drink and she goes over for a refill. Sarah was going to offer it, but she said, no, I'll take care of it. So she gets herself a glass of champagne without them looking, right? So at some point, Sarah gets a text notification that Teresa has been sent off to Statesville. And, she's like, that's probably why Brady could not go to the meeting, because Xander was like, I got a notification that Brady was not at the meeting and I was counting on him, right? So, she said that probably could be the reason why. So then Fiona, acting all, unaware, she's like, who is this Brady? So he's like, my idiot cousin, or my idiot nephew, I should say. So she's like, So Maggie's like, he's normally reliable, I'm his sponsor. So she's like, oh, so you go to AA. So she's like, yeah, I do. So she's like, she didn't want to really get in her business, but she's like, no, we're a family. So she's like, if you want to go to a meeting, I'm more than glad to support you. We're a family. So she's like, yeah, I'll let you know, right? So that was that, because she got a message from Brady and, she was heading out there to go meet him at this bar, right? So we see Brady at the bar and he's throwing the drinks back and he sees a picture of his son Tate and, he decides to call him. So Tate is with Holly at the cabin, right? So he's just checking on him to see if he made it back to New York in time and, how he didn't get a call from him. So Tate was like, it got busy here. I'm sorry about that, just pretending. And, I just made it into a car going back to the camp and da. So he's like, I know it must have been hard to see your mom go to prison and all that. So he's like, yeah, I just wish that I could be in Salem. So Brady's like, we already talked about that. It just wouldn't be suitable. And you made a commitment to the camp and you need to just finish it out. I really miss you, So he's like, at first he was like, do you just want to get rid of me? So he's like, no, I really miss you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you back here, right? So anyways, he asked his father where he was. And then Brady proceeded to lie about him actually being at home. So he's like, it's a little bit noisy over there. So he's like, no, it's just the TV and whatever. So he's like, we'll catch up, right? So at this point, he's still drinking and he sends a text message to Fiona, which Fiona responds to actually meeting up with him at the bar. So at some point, a waiter come over and he's like, oh, this is your home away from home. So he's like, excuse me. So he's like, I heard you talking on the phone about your being at home when you're really not. So he's like, how about you mind your business? Like, why are you invading my privacy? It's none of your business, right? So he's like, okay. Then he just walked away and he called him a jackass, right? So he's got up, ready to fight him. And that's when Fiona came in, right? So Fiona breaks it up between him and the waiter and she apologizes for his behavior and said that she will give him a large tip, right? So, he proceeds to leave and then they, get to talking, right? So Brady begins to tell her the story about how Kristen stole the embryo from Teresa and was pregnant with Tate. I don't know how they reached that story, but that was what they were talking about. And she just found it really strange that that could happen, right? So anyways, they, continue to drink and, she's like, why don't we take it back to my place? So Brady's like, you know what, maybe not tonight. I need to be back home. My family needs me. So she's like, okay, family man. So that was where they stopped, and they proceeded to go about their ways, right? So we go back to Sarah and Xander, and Maggie's still there. So Maggie asked them, so what are you guys going to do for a honeymoon, right? Because she already offered to babysit Victoria while they take some time away, and Fiona also agreed to help as well. So they're, thinking about a lodge or anything like that. So I just knew that they were going to talk about this Horton cabin at some point, right? Somehow this was going to get tied in. So Maggie mentioned that because Johnny and Chanel was there, right? So then Sarah said, yeah, they were there until Julie just interrupted them, right? So Maggie is like, that won't be a problem, so you'll have it all to yourself, no no unwanted guests and all of that. So they agreed to that, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. It's a fair ride away, and we'll just, get some time together for our honeymoon, right? So they agree on that, and Maggie goes back to the mansion to find the key, right? So we already know that Holly stole the key and went to the cabin already to see Tate, right? To have their time together. So I don't know how this is gonna play out, right? So speaking of Ollie and Tate, right? So they're having a meal at the cabin, and she begins to talk about Sophia and how Sophia wanted her to go over to Tate's dad and really, break up what they're having going on, right? So she just, can't believe that she would be really despiteful. So he's like, I'm sorry that you're in this position. And she's like, do you really think that she would really tell about us? So he's like, I ain't no telling. So she's like, she shouldn't, because, I'm paying her. And if this comes out, she will have to work her own shifts, right? So he's like, let's just hope that she doesn't. So at some point, Brady calls him, and she's like, I wonder if he already knows. So he's like, only one way to find out. So that is when they actually talked, and he was just checking in if he reached back to camp all right and all of that, right? So I won't hold you back on that conversation because we speak about it earlier, right? So he hanged up, and she's like, I'm taking it he doesn't know, right? I'm taking it that he's at camp. You're at camp, right? So he's like, yeah, he's still buying that. So I'll be back in a few weeks. So, we might not be able to really sneak around and do this again. So she's like, yeah, but probably your parents will probably be a lot cooler about it when it's time for school again. So he's like, yeah, my mom really, gave me her blessings for us to date and all that. So that should be good. So at some point they began kissing, and Holly mentioned them actually taking it to the next level. So Tate was taken aback by it because he's like, are you sure? Are we ready? We don't really have protection or that. So she said, I got this from the drugstore, so let's do it. So he's like, he's still hesitant because he's like saying, I don't think we're ready for this because, we're just doing this to because we are trying to appease Sophia at this point, and we shouldn't do it because of that. We should do it because we really want it, and we really, doing it because we want it to be together, right? So she at some point come around to it, and she's like, I want it to be a lot more romantic than this, right? So we go over to Jack. He's at Kayla's office, right? So Jack proceeds to tell Kayla about how the whole thing went on at Missouri, and she's like, so did you guys find Abigail? So he's like, not quite, but we're hoping that you can help, right? Because we came back with a woman that was in a car accident around the time that Abigail was supposedly stabbed and all of that. And she had facial reconstructive surgery and all of that, right? So she's like, okay, let's get this test done to prove if Abigail is really here with us or not, right? So at this point, we go over to Chad, and at this point, let's just call her Jane Doe, as Kayla proceeds to call her, right? So the lady is there, right? Because we still don't know her name. So, she's kind of nervous about how this is gonna go down. She, she's like, what if I'm really Abigail? I really still, are we gonna be together? Like, I really don't know you. So I'm just really thinking this is probably a bad idea. So, he tries to calm her down about it, and he's just like, we just really need to know answers at the end of the day, right? So I'm just really appreciative that you're here and we can really have some closure on this, right? So at some point, Jack calls them in for the DNA testing, right? So they go ahead with that. So they go in and, the test is conducted. So Kayla just went ahead to submit them. And, she says that she's going to, put a rush in it. And Chad is like, how long will it take? So she's like, normally 1 or 2 hours, but I'm going to make sure to expedite it, right? So that leaves the three of them to talk. So the lady said that she's, hungry and all of that. So he's like, okay, Chad is like, okay, let's go to the cafeteria. So she had coffee earlier and she said it was really bad. So she's like, if that's bad, imagine the food at the cafeteria, right? So he's like, okay, let's go somewhere else, right? So they proceed to go out and leave Jack in the office, right? So Kayla comes back and Jack is there. So she's like, where did they go, right? So he's like, they went out to eat, but I'm just feeling that Chad has a different agenda in terms of her, right? So he gets a phone call from Jennifer, and, after that phone call, he's telling Kayla that she's really apprehensive about this being true, right? Because she just doesn't want to get her hopes up and then get her heart broken and all of that. So that's understandable, right? So then she asks, how does JJ, Abigail's brother, feel about it? So he's like, he's thinking that, Clyde is a liar and we're just wasting our times. We're getting our hopes up for nothing. So Kayla's like, I really do hope that, he's wrong about this and we really get the answers. So she did run out of the office again to check on the results, right? So Chad and this, I really need a name for her. Chad and this blonde lady, they go back to the Demare mansion, and she's like, this is really nice. I thought you was gonna carry us to restaurant. So he's like, I brought you here for a reason. And she's like, oh, to see if I, can pick up something that will help with my memory. So it's like, yeah, that was my agenda. So they have a meal there, and he started also giving her pieces to remember and, trying to see if that will help, but she doesn't remember anything at all, right? So they do get a text message that the results are in, so they head on back to the hospital, right? So Xander and Sarah, they're in the square. They have their suitcases ready for this trip to the Horton cabin, right? So they're just excited to, start their honeymoon that same night, right? So then Sarah gets a call from Maggie, and Maggie's telling her that she can't find the key anywhere, right? So she's like, you sure Johnny and Chanel doesn't still have it? So Sarah's like, no, Johnny and Chanel gave me back the key and I put it in the desk drawer, right? So Maggie's like, she still can't find it. So at some point the phone call ended, and Sarah is like, let me still get the tickets at the office, right, for the ferry ride, right, because that was the last ferry out. So she leaves Xander with the suitcase and go about that, right? So we head back to the office, right, and Kayla comes in with the results, and Jack, Chad, and the blonde lady's there, right? So she gives the lady to open it, but she's like, this is for Chad, right? So Chad opens it, he's still reading, and Jack is like, so what does it say, Chad? So that was where it ended with them, right? So we're gonna find out if the lady is actually Abigail or not, right? So we see Fiona and Brady, right? Brady's passed out in the back and Fiona is driving. Again, recipe for disaster, because they are both drinking and they needed a different person to drive them, like a designated driver. She is not a designated driver. But anyways, she's like, I couldn't let you drive, so I'm going to drive you home, right? So at some point, we see Sarah outside somewhere, right? She's minding her business. I think she, went to buy the tickets for the ferry, but she's out there, and, Fiona doesn't see at first because of the glare and all that. So she's just continuously driving. And then Sarah just started screaming, like, and Fiona was like, oh my gosh. So I don't know if she really hit Sarah off the road, or I don't know. But Xander is going to be mortified, upset with Fiona, especially that, you know, she lied about her drinking. She lied about she lied about the person, the stranger. She didn't tell him that's Brady. But most importantly, she, you know, probably hit Sarah, right? And you know how he feels about Sarah. You know how he loves him some Sarah. So, and they just got married. So this is chaotic already. This is a whole mess. So that is it, guys. I will see you tomorrow for an all new recap. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.